Our guest host for the next hour runs the world's largest money management firms with assets totaling over $3.9 trillion. Joining us right now is Larry Fink. He is the chairman and CEO of BlackRock. Also, Representative Paul Ryan, who is the chairman of the Budget Committee and former vice presidential candidate, is here. And Larry, thanks for joining us at the table this morning.
Thank you, Becky. It's nice to be here.
Larry, it is great to have you here. And this was kind of an accident to have you and Paul on the set at the same time. It just kind of worked out that way. But you two both have one thing in common, and that is trying to make sure that people are prepared for their retirement.
Right.
I know that this has been a huge message for you. It's something you've spoken with us here in the past, but you've gotten more pointed about this because when you look at the numbers, you're really worried when what you see. How are Americans prepared right now?
Well, they're not prepared. I think the biggest issue we have today, bigger than even the tax policy, is this whole retirement issue. The average American only has $25,000 of savings.
Which means they are
during retirement. Only 65% of Americans who have who can participate in a defined contribution plan participate. So we have a whole group of Americans who are just who are not saving for tomorrow. Social Security was never meant to be a savings plan. It was meant to be a plan to hold over Americans during their retirement age, and now we're living longer. And so even the highest earner only receives $24,000 from Social Security, and yet 70% of Americans' income during retirement comes from Social Security because they're not saving that much. And now the problem is even more enlarged because if you actually put your money away in bonds 10 or 20 years ago, you enjoyed some very good returns. For those who are continuing to put their money in bonds earning 2 or 3%, they're not going to even get close to their needs unless they start contributing, a much greater percentage of their disposable income, which would have some pronounced impact on our economy today. And so even the asset allocation issues have to be addressed, and they need to be addressed today. And so I'm sounding the alarms today because I don't think anyone else is. And if you add this whole concept of elongated life, if we don't start addressing it now, the elongation of life, which we're all spending time, Paul exercises every day, Joe sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, but we're doing that because we intend to live longer. We want to see our grandchildren, hopefully our great-grandchildren. We're spending so little time on making sure that we have the financial wherewithal.
What's the answer, then?
Well, you're going to have to be nice to your kids because you're going to ultimately have to live with them if you don't have it. And that's truly, I don't mean that in any joke. That is going to be probably a response that you're going to see greater and greater. Maybe we're going back where we were 100 years ago where children supported their parents and their parents lived with them. But I don't see any other outcome other than that, or we are going to have to start thinking about ways of creating a different type of mandatory savings policy, which I believe we need to do in the United States.
Yeah, it's a numbers game, and Paul, you've talked a lot about that.
Yeah, I mean, I get two takeaways. Number one, I think about, one of the downsides of QE is we have destroyed the savers.
Right.
We've hurt the insurance companies who are trying to prepare annuities for the savers, and we're pushing people further out on the risk curve, stretching for yield, and that creates its own set of asset bubble problems. But to Larry's point, and Larry and I talked about this, he's one of those few people who's sounding the alarm about this income security problem for people in retirement. Don't forget, in 2033, we have a 25% across-the-board benefit cut to Social Security. Once we run out of the Social Security IOUs, then the current law, cuts the benefits across the board, and that's about a 25% benefit cut coming in the middle of people's retirements in 2033. So even Social Security, as small as that benefit is for people, gets cut by a quarter in 2033. And every year we go down this road of not fixing the problem, that day of reckoning comes earlier, meaning next year will probably be 2031 or 2032. So it's a demographic problem, and it's a problem that the political class in Washington is not getting ahead of these problems and fixing these entitlement messes.
Right. Paul,
if we could do it right now, we could do a lot.
Paul, but when Larry talks about creating mandatory savings programs, I mean, that seems to go even farther than what Social Security is today.
Well, no, but Social Security, the problem is...
It's a pay-as-you-go system.
Yeah, Social Security, the problem is, as an individual, we all are contributing 6.25% of our income. And your company's contributing 6.25% of your income. So there's that...
To a limit, and then it's capped.
Yeah, it's to $113,500, I believe the cap is now. But that... So 12.5% of your income is being put away. The problem is it's not a investment stream. if you calculate how much money you're putting away and you intend to retire between 65 and 67, you're not going to get your money back until about 85. Okay, and that's with zero return.
That's right.
It's never meant to be an investment scheme. It's meant to be a calamity scheme, basically, or a backdrop.
What is mind-boggling is that actuarially we aren't taking into account the way that knowledge is increasing right now in terms of health care. And there are people that think by 2030 we'll have cured not only most cancers, but even some age-related.
No, but
by 2040, we may all be living to over 100, and health care is going to be expensive, and no one's going to die.
Because we have created.
That's a good thing.
We made terminal diseases chronic diseases.
Right.
And that has.
But we may do better than that.
We may do better than that, but so far we have not really. We have not really changed much.
We're right on the cusp of how much knowledge we know about the genome. And we, hopefully,
you're right.
But that makes a bigger problem.
But in most treatments, like in cancer, we made some cancers chronic, but in most cases, all these new therapies have extended life maybe a year or so.
I'll buy you Kurzweil's book on the singularity that will occur in 2035 and 2045, where we may actually get to the point where you're cyborgs and you're plugged into the grid and your brain is transferred into a machine and you don't even die.
Given Joe's expectations, how do you change Social Security in terms of the age? What
well, I've always, I know bill I've written on this has age indexing. So what I've always advocated, what we did in our budget with respect to Medicare, is age indexing. Replicate the longevity tables at Social Security so that the retirement age moves up with longevity. That means it goes up 1 month every 2 years. I mean, and it's hardly draconian.
Right.
I mean, it would reach the age of 70, I think, in like 2103. So what we've been saying for a number of time as Republicans is these programs are never designed to last as long as they are. When Social Security was designed, life expectancy for men was 63, and the retirement age was, the retirement age was 65, and life expectancy was 63. So the numbers were great in those days.
Right.
But we're now, high 70s for men and 80 for women. So we're saying reflect longevity with the retirement age.
Larry, but let me just be a little more additive for a second. If you're a couple, though, 60 years old, statistically one of the couples now going to live over 90. So, when you do these age tables, it takes into account all the young people who have died from some cause, traffic accidents, other causes. It even takes into account men and women in military deaths and things like that. And so, actually, when you're 60 years old, you have a high probability of living to 90 now.
Why do you think the Democrats have not been more supportive of some of these what seem like common sense solutions?
I don't know. I mean, I've discussed this with Republicans and Democrats, this whole concept of longevity. I do believe if we bring the concept of longevity to the American people, you could have then a sensible conversation about entitlements. You could have some sensible conversations. But if we don't educate about this whole concept of elongated life, then it's hard and emotional to talk about the changes. And so to me, and this is one of the reasons why we are speaking out a lot more about it, I believe we have to educate. We have to inform. And I believe that dialogue can move down a more sensible path.
Great to see.
I thought you asked me to come here to just opine on this new merger.
It'll happen. We're just kidding around a little bit.
Okay, good.
Paul's going back to Washington to block it. What's wrong?
Yeah, no, I thought that's what I got out of this show, which is go stop this.
Go stop this. This is not a good transaction for America.
It would be crazy. We're joking about it, but you never know. In the heartland, remember what happened with Yoplait? Was it Yoplait?
No, it was Danone.
Was it Danone in France?
Yeah, I already made that.
Pepsi wanted to buy it
in Wisconsin.
And they said it was
Danone in France, and that's what they wanted to keep it pronounced.
Right, and they didn't sell it. I mean, that wasn't a huge deal. That was just like a French
yogurt. Yeah,
that was sacre bleu. It's our yogurt. It wasn't Greek yogurt like you like. Anyway.
Yeah.